And welcome to our webinar called How to Rig a Custom Four-Legged Character for Cartoon Animator. Now, you guys might have seen some of the webinars that I filmed previously about different methods of how you can rig custom characters for this software. But the thing is, they all had one thing in common. They were all two-legged characters. Okay, so today I thought we'd have some fun and we'd try and rig something a little bit different, that we'd have a go at rigging a four-legged character, in particular a dog. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the characters that comes built in with Cartoon Animator, and we're going to do it right here inside the software. We're going to swap out all of the parts of this character for our own custom character. We're going to do the 360 head, we're going to do the body rig, and then at the very end of the webinar, we'll export it out to Photoshop. We will set up the irises for the eyes for facial puppetry, because that unfortunately is the one thing that we can't do directly here in the software. But before we get started, I have to give you my disclaimer. First of all, I never claim that my way is the best way, the easiest way, the fast way, the only way, or even the right way to do things. But what I do claim is my way works. Second of all, we're going to have plenty of other CTA pros in here today who are going to have their own spin on things, their own way of doing things. Listen to them, take on board what I can teach you, do your own research, and you're going to build up a fantastic knowledge for Cartoon Animator. And thirdly, I've been using this software for over 10 years, and I still don't claim that I know everything. So if you ask a question today and I can't answer it, don't worry. There's still plenty of other ways that you can get answers to your questions, including the Cartoon Animator white pages. Then we have the official Reillusion YouTube tutorials. We have the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook group, where we have over 6,000 animators, illustrators, developers who are on hand around the world 24 hours a day to answer your questions. At the end of this webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session where Kai and I will attempt to answer your questions live. And then finally, after all of that, if you still don't have an answer to your question, send me an email to garrypye@reillusion.com and I will do my best to hook you up with someone who can answer your question. All right, now we've only got an hour or so to rig a complete character with a 360 head and a full body rig, so we cannot afford to muck around. I do want to point out, I'm going to move relatively fast through this, but the good point is it's all being uploaded to YouTube. You're going to be able to go back and watch it 100 times if you need to. You can slow it down, do whatever you want. Let's get stuck in. Let's get this dog made. What we're going to do, I'm going to use this dog character here called Ted's dog, which is included in Cartoon Animator. It's part of the software. And we're going to swap out all of our own parts for it. But before we do that, I want to introduce you to this character and just show you a little bit about what it can do. First of all, if we open up our sprite editor here and go to the face, you can see, for instance, with the eyes, that we have all these different eye sprites that we can use on Ted's dog. Eventually, you're going to put all of your own custom sprites in here and you're going to be able to do all your own. Then as well, we've got the mouth, same thing. We've got all different mouths that we can use. We're going to swap all those around. Then, if we go into the 360 head creator, you'll see that we have this lovely little 360 head that we can move around on Ted's dog. You're going to be able to do that on your own dog character. And finally, if we go into the motions and we go down here to the 2D motions, we go to animals, you'll see that I have the cat, dog, and horse packs, and I strongly recommend that you go out and buy these two packs, I think it is, of motions for animals. It's all you're ever going to need. Everything you need is in there. They're available in the content store, and I promise you, fantastic value for money. So if we go to move here, for instance, we can just grab the loop cycle for the walk, drag and drop it onto Ted's dog, and away he goes. So we're going to be able to do that with our character as well. All right, here's how I go about making a custom four-legged character. The first thing that I do is I go in and I find the template for the dog, which is this one here, okay? And I bring that in, and with the template there, if I load up the bones so that I can see them all, I can see exactly where all the different parts that I need to make of my dog are and where the bones need to sit. I take a snapshot of that and I drop that into my favorite drawing software, which for me just happens to be CorelDRAW. Doesn't matter what software you use, it just happens to be what I use. So I took this snapshot of the character and then I broke down all the shapes that I need for all the different parts of the character, and then I built my dog. One thing in detail, one thing that you'll notice that I did is when I was building the face for the character, I built it facing forwards because we're going to take 90% of these parts of the face and just move them left and right and up and down to create the different angles that we need for the head rotation. Now, there are some parts like the nose and the mouth where we're going to use a sprite swapping method so that we can change the look of them. But for the most part, we're going to be able to use all of the parts that exist in the forward-facing character. So what I did, I took all the different parts of the face and I made a sheet where I broke all of them down. So now you can see these are all the different parts that make up the face. And here we've got the forward-facing mouth, then facing to the right, facing to the left. Same with the eyes. You've got the eyes there. And you'll notice that I broke up with the eyes. Let me zoom in on it. You'll notice that I broke up the iris separate to the rest of the eye. You need to do that if you want to do facial puppetry, and that's what we're going to do today. So do all your eye sprites, but leave your iris separate. Now, I've already saved out all of these parts as SVG parts that we can transfer into Cartoon Animator, but I will go through and just show you how I do one because the process was repetitive after that point. So let's take the face, copy it to the clipboard and open up a new page and paste it right into the center of the page and make sure that we just have a little bit of white space around the outside of the face so that we don't get any cropping or clipping when this part goes into Cartoon Animator. I'm going to export it, and I have over here, exports. We've got here, we've got our face parts. These are all of my face parts exported as SVGs, okay? So the face there, if I was to export it, yes, I'm going to export that face part. There we go, and we're in here. Now, what we need to do, we're going to open up, import Ted's dog, because we're going to build on top of him, right? And the first thing we need to do is to take Ted into composer mode. Now you need to think of composer mode as the engine room of Cartoon Animator. This is where you can make all the changes to your character that are permanent, and you can save them as all new characters, okay? So we're going to work on the head first, because one of the most common things that people ask me about is how do I do the 360 head? They're still getting stuck on that. This is going to give you a lot of really cool tips that apply not only just to the dog, but to any sort of face character, human, whatever, doesn't matter. So with our character selected, let's choose the face sprite and open up our sprite editor. And you can see here, this is the forward-facing sprite. Here is the face, and we have two options here. We can add a new element or replace the current element. We have an element in there at the moment, which is the face, so let's just replace it. We're going to replace that face element with our face part here, which was the face forward face. Where is that? Face parts. Oh, it's not. It's on the body parts. That's why, isn't it? No, face parts. Face forward. Where is it? Why can't I see it? Now forward. Face. There it is. Okay, now when we bring the face in, the first thing you'll notice is it may not come in at the size that you want. That's not a problem, because up here, you can just change the scale to be whatever. For this particular model, I'm just going to make it 40, but the thing that you need to realize is if you change the size there, you need to change it for every single piece that you bring in, okay? All of the face parts, all of the body parts now need to come in at that same size. Just as a point, we've only put the face in, but let's just take a look straight away at the 360 head creator. If I hit preview now, already you can see that head is starting to move around quite nicely, but we need to make it look like our dog. 2 points on this particular model. We have a couple of different items here that we're not going to need, and that is the spot over the top of his face and the shadow on the side there. If you want to get rid of a part of the face, all you need to do is to open up your bone editor, select the pivot point associated with the sprite that you don't want, which in this case is the spot, and hit delete, and that's going to get rid of it. Then we also don't want the shadow. Delete, that will get rid of it. Beautiful. All right, while we're here, let's do the eyes. We're going to do that, open up our sprite editor again. We've got the right eye selected. Now, for this demonstration, I'm only going to do the normal eye, the smile close, and the eye squint. But when you do a custom character, you need to do all of the eyes. You've got 6 eye emotions here that you need to match up. Beyond that, you can add in as many different eyes as you want, okay? I'm just going to do 3. There is a reason for it, but for a finished character, you need to do them all. We have our normal there. Again, we're just going to replace the current element, and that's the right eye normal. Bring it in. We need to resize it, reposition it. We'll do that in a second. And let's just bring them all in for now. The right eye, smile, close, and the eye squint. Right eye squint. Here we go. All right. Now, first thing I want to do is to make sure that they're all the same size. So we're going to take each of these and make them 40. And you'll see, as I've done that, that they don't all line up in exactly the same spot. So if I was to swap between sprites when I was animating, that eye is going to jump around. We don't want that. So starting with the normal, let's just even these numbers out and make them -50 on the x-axis, -76 on the y-axis. All I need to do now is to make sure that each of my eyes is the same, -50, -76, again, -50, and -76, right? Because now I can swap between these eye sprites nice and smooth, and they're going to switch between eye sprites. Let's just quickly do the right eye, the left eye, normal, and smile, close. Where was it? Smile, close, and eye squint. Same thing. Same again. Look, a lot of the stuff that we're going to do today, you're going to find is repetitive. Okay, that's the good thing. Doing all this is repetitive. It means you don't have to learn new stuff every time you want to make a new character. It's the same thing over and over again. Tidy these numbers up. So we only have to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. -33 and 76. We'll go -33, 76. So it really doesn't matter whether you make one character or 1,000 characters. Honestly, you can just use the same method over and over. All right, so now we've got our eyes in place. There we go. Now, while we're here, let's do the brows. Let's select our brows, do the right brow, bring it in. Right brow will be down the bottom here. There we go. Now, this is a really good point, a really good time to show you how Cartoon Animator works, because this software works by using a cutout rigged puppet system, meaning we have a pivot point and a sprite associated with that pivot point, and that sprite rotates 360 degrees around that pivot point, okay? And it is the movement of those sprite rotations and pivot point movement that simulate animation, okay? And in order to get our parts in the right place, we have 3 tools that we can use, and that's these 3 tools up here. We have transform part, which means we can move the, let's grab that one properly. There we go. Transform part means that we can move just the sprite and the bone together. Then we have transform sprite, which means that we can move just the sprite, leaving the bone in place. And then we have transform bone, which means we can move the bone, but leave the sprite in place. And we can use these 3 tools to work out exactly how we want to set up our face. Now you can see at the moment, if I hit preview, that this pivot point affects that sprite by making the sprite rotate around there. But if you look at the other eyebrow, it rotates around the front there, which is more the look that we want. So all we need to do is to move our sprite into position onto the pivot point around about there. Perfect. Now let's do the other one. Get him into position. Let's open up the left brow. Bring in the left brow. Make it 40. And drop it into position. And there we go. Now, one thing we can do here, if you want to, is you can start moving your parts around, like bring the eyes in a little bit closer so that it matches our original dog model. We can move all of the parts around to do that. While we're here, let's also do the ears. Now, with the ear, you'll notice that the ear has 4 bones in it, okay? The sprite of the ear is associated with the first bone in the chain, which is this one here. So if I want to change my ear sprite, I need to click that first bone, replace the image, right ear, bring it in, change the scale to 40. There we go. Change the scale to 40, drop it into position roughly there, and we'll do the other ear. We won't worry about the bones. One of the things that you're going to notice here as I do this, right, is I'm not particularly worried about making sure that all my bones are in place when I start. That's a great way of being able to do it, because it means that you can just make these things up as you go along and come back and tweak it. You don't have to get it right first time. And I got to be honest, that's really good for me because I never get it right first time. All right. So we've got our ears in place, but not our bones. So now if we select transform bone, we can just put our bone in across the ear of where we want it to move. Interesting point here. See how these bones are gray and these bones are blue? That's because these bones are not over the top of the sprite, so there's nothing to affect. They won't turn colored until they go over the top of your sprite. That means if they're not over the top, if they're not colored, they won't affect the sprite. So when you set them up, make sure that your bones are over the top of the sprite, because honestly, just by missing it by a couple of pixels will mean that your arms and legs and face parts just won't even rotate properly. All right, let's bring that in. Let's bring that down. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look now at our 360 head. Here's a point that I want to point out. You'll see the little dots around the screen here. They represent the different angles for your head. So this is facing forward. This is facing to the right, to the left, up, down, etc. And what's going to happen, Cartoon Animator is going to move all of your parts around based on the look that you've set up for each of these angles so that your dog's head will rotate around, okay? And the layer structure here, if I open it up, these are all the layers for each of the angles. And you can change the order of these. Think of it like a sandwich with the top layer on top being the one that you see first, moving down the list. So when he's looking forward, this is the angle. You'll see that his ears are both behind his head, right? But when he turns to the right, this ear now moves to the top of his head so that when he moves his head, his ears can go either side of his head. So you can change the angle of that. Another thing you can do, you have these two buttons here, transform and deform, which can change the shape and position of different face sprites. So that, for instance, if you look at his eyes there, right? When he moves to the side, I might decide that I want his eye to be a slightly different shape. So I can remold that like that by just tweaking the shape around like that, so that now when he moves his eyes, they start to deform from the original sprite that was used. So we're still using the same sprites, but we're changing the shape. Now, you need to go through and do that for every single angle. And I'm not going to sit here now and do it for every single angle, or I'm going to waste our entire session together doing that. So having shown you that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to stage mode and I'm going to load a second version of my dog, which now has all of those parts set up. Okay, so this is the point that we were at. Oh, except for the ears, I missed those. So we'll just quickly, oh no, we're looking at the face. Here we go. There we go. Let's zoom in on it. Beautiful. So now I've got the dog's face all set up so that now if we go into the 360 head and we do rotation, you can see that I've got all the different parts. I've got those eyes all morphed and everything. So everything's right. And we can move on from this point. So the next thing I want to do is to bring in the nose of my character. So we go back to our sprite editor and we pick the nose. There we go. Now let's bring in our sprite for the nose. Nose turning forward, facing forward. Change it to be 40. Now, don't forget you've always got your reference here of your dog. You need to try and just match up the look of this dog with the dog that we're creating. So you can see that the nose in the forward-facing position covers the eyes slightly at the bottom. So let's take that nose and make it just slightly cover that at the bottom. Beautiful. Now, on this particular model, there is a second pivot point here with a sprite attached for nose 2, which is the little line down the middle of his nose. We're going to use that for our dog's snout. Okay, so let's replace that and bring in the snout. All right, because we want our dog's head to extend when he turns sideways. So I've made his nose in separate layers. Bring that up. There's the snout. Bring the snout down to where we want it, which is around about there. Beautiful. And then finally, we need to bring our mouth in, but you'll see something a little bit strange about the mouth for now because it's going to be in front of the snout, and we don't want that. So here's our mouth facing forward. Got a 40. Okay, right now he looks a little weird. As this dog progresses, you're going to realize there are going to be times here where it just looks absolutely bizarre. Don't panic. He will work out okay in the end. Let's put our mouth down where we want, which is around about there. And let's move our dog up. And now we need to get that mouth behind the snout, right? So over here in our layer order, here's the mouth layer. Here is the nose. Let's call it snout. We don't want it called nose anymore. Let's call it snout. If you go into your scene here, nose 2, which is the snout, we can double click that, call it snout. Now we know, if I can spell properly, now we know what we're looking for on our list, which is the snout. So the mouth needs to be behind the snout, right? So just hold down your left mouse button, drag and drop. Now the mouth is behind the snout, looking a lot better. Now we need to make sure that that will move correctly as we move our face around. So if we go into here and just bring him up into focus, when I hit preview now, see, his mouth is jumping layers. It's not in the right layer order. That's because for every single layer, every single angle, you need to make sure that you have all of your layers in the correct order. So that mouth needs to go behind the snout, right? And I'm only doing this side for a moment, and you'll see why in a second. There we go. So now when I hit preview, okay, it's looking a little bit better. The snout's it's still getting a little bit of a warp to it, but it's looking a little bit better, okay? But when I go to the other side, and all of a sudden everything falls apart and nothing looks right. Here is the reason why. It's because in Ted's dog, the model is using sprite swapping technique as it moves to the other side. I will explain what that means now. If we go into our sprite editor, this little button here represents the forward-facing view of your dog. This is the right-facing view. This is the left-facing view. So as you can see, when he goes forward with the mouth here, right? Forward-facing, that's what the mouth looks like. Right-facing, it's using the same sprite. But left-facing, it's using a whole new sprite. We don't want to use that sprite. So let's delete it. This button here, delete it. Beautiful. Now it's going to use the forward-facing sprite. Okay, that's better, but it's still not the sprite that we want, because when we designed our original dog's head here, I've got the forward-facing sprite, then I've got what it looks like when he turns to the right, what it looks like when he turns to the left. Same with the nose. So forward-facing, that is the sprite I want to use. When he turns to the right, I'm going to replace that current element with the mouth to the right turn. There we go. On the left, I'm going to replace it with the left turn. There we go. Fantastic. Getting closer. We've still got the problem of the snout. If I select the snout, you'll see when he turns right, we're using the same sprite for the snout, and we just want the same sprite. We don't want a new one. But when he turns to the left, it's still using that old line sprite. We don't want that. Just delete it. If you delete it, when you go back, now it'll use that sprite. We're getting a little bit closer. He still looks like he's been hit in the face with a baseball bat, but we're getting closer. All right. Let's go back to our 360 editor and start tidying things up. On these angles now, we need to make sure that our mouth is underneath the snout. Okay, here we go. Mouth is underneath the snout. That's starting to look a little bit better. Right, now we've got our angles, our layers right, but that snout is still in a really weird shape. One of the things that I'll sometimes do when I build a character over the top of another character is I will clear the transform and deform of that original part, and that will help me. So if I go up to the top here and I clear the deform for each of the angles of the snout, right? You're not going to really see much of a difference yet, but you will in a second. I'm just clearing out the deform, right? Just to make sure that that's okay. Then back to the beginning, and now I'm going to clear the transform. And you will see that that snout is going to start looking a little bit better shaped. Just quickly do all of those. There we go. And there we go. Let's see how we're looking now. Now when we hit preview, okay, he's starting to look a little bit better. Now we can use the transform and deform to make sure that we start getting the shape of all of our parts right. When I move across here to the side, I can take my nose, close that off, and leave that there. I can take my nose out to the side here a little bit, right? Bring the snout back in a little bit, maybe even just use the deform to extend the snout shape a little bit like that. Now, when he does the movement to the right, now his face starts to look a little bit more three-dimensional, like he's got that elongated snout, and we're only using the same snout to do the whole thing, right? You can also turn around and go, all right, I want the mouth to come back a little bit when he does that. Preview. There we go. Nice. One last thing that's worth noting here. See when he turns his head to the right, you can still see both nostrils on his nose. But when you turn your head to the side, that wouldn't happen. You only need to see the one nostril. Therefore, in my original design here, I created a forward-facing nose. Let's zoom in. You can't see that. I created the forward-facing nose, the right-facing nose, and the left-facing nose. So when he turns to the side, you only see the one nostril. And we know now all we need to do is to select that nose, go into the sprite editor. For the forward facing, it looks like that. When we turn to the right, I'm going to replace it with the right facing nose. Nose, turn right. There it is. Thank you. And the left. Left, turn nose. There we go. Right. So now, when he rotates to the right, you'll see that he's only got the one nostril. Now you need to go through and you need to do this for every single angle as well. Again, I've shown you how to do the right hand angle, doing it for the others, same thing, go through, make sure all your layers are in order, make sure that all your sprites are the ones that you want, make sure that they're in the right position, and make sure they're deformed correctly. That's all you need to do there, okay? So again, I'm going to jump out of here for a second, and I've set all those pieces up with this particular character, this version of it, which we'll bring in here and go to his face, and we'll go to here. And now you can see there's the face that I just had set up, right? And we can even go back and deform that mouth snout a little bit more like we did before. Bring it back like that. And I've done this for each of the angles now, so that I've got the down, the up, I've got all my different angles. So now when I preview, my dog's head starts to rotate a lot nicer. You'll see that the eyes are matching the rotation of the head. The ears are coming to the right side of the body. The sprites are swapping as they need to. He's starting to look a lot better. All right. Now, there are a few other different face parts on our original dog that are not on the model that we're currently working on. And they include the brow ridge, the shadow under the snout, and the freckles on either side of his snout there. So we want to add new parts to our character's face. How do we do that? If we want to add in, let's say, the brow ridge to start with, remember, any part of the face or body that you bring in has to have a pivot point associated with it, because that's what it's going to rotate around. Now, I could just use the front hair if I want to, but I want to have the brow ridge to have its own pivot point. So I'm going to open up my bone tools, and I've got the hair, front hair selected. We're going to extend a bone off that with a pivot point at the end. So if I hit add bone, I can click anywhere on screen. If I click there, hit escape on my keyboard, now I have a new bone. I have a new bone, which I can have a pivot point on the end of and move it anywhere around on my dog. I'm going to sit it just there, and now I can put a sprite associated with that pivot point. So let's grab a sprite, and that will be our this one here. We're going to add a new bone, a new sprite, and it is our brow ridge. Now this is going to come in huge. All right, there we go. And we reduce it down to 40 to match all our other face parts, and it's already dropped in place almost exactly where we want it. Right, that's our brow ridge. And don't forget our new little pivot point that we've created up there. If we go into our scene manager, it is, where is he on the list? Here it is here, highlighted. We can double click that and call it brow ridge, so we can easily find it again on our list and when we need it in the future. All right, I'll go ahead and do one more of these because this can be new to a lot of people. Let's do the shadow that goes underneath his snout. So I select the snout button, open up my bone editor. I'm going to add a new bone. Again, I can click anywhere on the screen, doesn't matter. Hit escape to stop it, close that off, make sure I've got transform bone selected. Now I can move this bone anywhere I want. I want the bone to be just up here on his nose because it's going to move along with his nose. Now we can associate a sprite with it. Open up our sprite editor, grab a new, open up our sprites, and we're looking for what? Nose shadow. There we go. Again, it's going to come in huge. We're going to reduce it down to 40. Perfect. It's already in place. Thank you very much. Go to our scene. There it is there. We'll call that nose shadow. So there's no mistaking what it is. And then all you need to do for these new items that you bring in is go to each angle and then make sure it's in the right layer order and that it's in the right position. So the snout would need to go there. The poor old brows have gone right to the very top. We don't want that. We want the brows underneath the eyes and the eyebrows. There we go. And then we can use deform on this one, and we could just transform the shape of that to be back here, something like that, right? So that now when I move to the side, his eyes, his nose shadow, and his eye ridge will move like that. You can tweak these 1,000 times until you get it right. Then you've got to go through and you've got to set up all the other angles. You can have between 4 angles and 25 angles if you want, just by selecting this button here. Okay, you can hit the plus button and you can add in as many different angles as you want. I generally use 9. Sometimes I will use 25 if it's a complicated character. But right now, as you move around, everything looks crazy because you've got to go through and you've got to set up all those parts individually. Okay, one more time. Once you've done that, I've got one more version of the character here that I'm going to bring in where I've got all of that set up. You just go through and do it exactly how I showed you, and I've got everything set up here that you can look at. I go into here like that. There we go. So now, as you can see, I've got the brow ridge set up, the nose shadow, and I've got the freckles coming off the bones here, each of which have their own pivot point so they can be controlled as well. And when I hit my 3D 360 head creator and hit preview, now my dog's head starts to rotate like that. So it's very much like building a puppet, right? You just put a new piece on, make sure that you get it right. Put a new piece on, make sure you get it right. That's all you've got to do. So that's pretty much how you create a 360 head. You'll notice that our character does not have eyeballs yet, no iris. Don't worry about that. Today, that's the last thing we're going to do. Now let's move on and take a look at the body of the character. How are we doing? 11:30. We're doing good on time. Let's have a look at the body of the character. Now, I've got all of the body parts broken up, just like I did the face parts. I've got all my body parts broken up. I've exported all of those as SVGs, all ready to go. So we can bring them in one by one. Let's make sure that our head is at the top of the level, just because we want it to be in front of all the rest of the body parts. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to switch across to body, and we're going to move down the body from the head, down the neck, down the body to start moving all these pieces in. Now, when I do this, it's going to look like a complete mess, okay? And the reason is because all your my bone structure, my sprites don't match up with Ted's dog, but don't worry, all we need to do in the end is to make sure that our final version of our dog has a similar bone structure to the one that we took the original snapshot of. So we know the tail is there, we know the legs are there, the hip bone's here, the neck. Use that as a guide and you can't go wrong. Okay, let's kick off with the neck. I'm going to make his head invisible for a second so that we can see where his neck is, which is here. Select the neck and we will add a sprite to it. Currently, there's no sprite attached to the neck, so we hit add new element and we're going to go into our SVG body parts and we're going to grab our dog's neck and we're going to reduce it to 40 and see how it looks. Bring the face back on. Oops, I turned that off. Bring the face back on. Okay, it's pretty much in the spot that we want, but we need the head to be in front of the neck. Nice. So far, so good. All right. Now let's do the body. Select his body, swap the sprite across. We're going to use replace current element, replace it with dog's body. There we go. Let's bring that in, make it 40. Perfect. Let's use, now, what I'm going to do here, I'm using transform sprite. I'm not worrying about the bones for now. I'm just going to put the sprites where I want, and I want the sprite to be about there. I'm building the look of my dog. Now what we'll do is we will just quickly put the legs and the tail roughly where we want them, and then we can transform them around later on. So let's grab that tail, and when I move it and try to put it where I want it and let go of my left mouse button, you'll see it snaps back into place. And that will drive you crazy the first time you try to make a character because you don't understand why it won't stay in the right spot, because you need to hit this little button here, edit pose. Once you hit that, now I can move my tail and it will stay exactly where I want. Thank you very much. Let's just grab these legs and just whack them down here underneath the dog, just really rough, so that we're slowly starting, oh, I grabbed his ear, so that we are just slowly starting to build the look of our dog character. There we go. Now, We've got those parts in place, but there's still a few bones there not in place. So let's use transform bone. Let's grab that hip. Now, if I move the hip now, all the bones are going to move with it, okay? If I grab that and move it, all the bones are going to move at the same time. We don't want that. We just want to move the hip. So if you hold down the E key on your keyboard and now move that bone, just like magic, it moves all on its own and no other bones are affected. So I can now grab his spine, and I know that his spine needs to be roughly there. I can grab his other spine, which I know needs to be between his two front legs. I can grab the base of the neck, put it at the base of the neck, and put this bone halfway up his neck so that his neck will bend. Okay, we're looking a little bit better. Now, let's get our sprites in there. So, let's do the tail to start with. Open up our sprite editor. Then we've got a tail in there. Replace the current element, find his tail. Boom, bring it in, take it up to 40, because everything has to be at 40. And we can just put the tail where we want. Let's say we want it around about there. Now, while we're working, go back where you were. Now, let's also, while we're here, fix up the bones in the tail. So if we hit transform bone, take it, I'll zoom in a little bit. I can grab each of these bones, and truly, don't be too worried about where they are, okay? You can test your character out for movement at any point and come back and fix this, all right? So just put them in roughly where you want them for now. And another thing is, I know I want the tail behind the body, not in front of it. So if I close off my sprite editor, here is my layer order of everything, but I want the tail to be behind the body. If I select the tail, hold down my left mouse button, drag and drop it, the tail is now behind his bottom. All right, let's swap in the legs and the feet. Now, okay, BL up phi, we're looking for BL up phi. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring these parts in first and then we'll fix them up. The BL foot, BL foot. We'll do this leg to start with. So take it up to 40. Take the foot up to 40. Now, just drop them roughly into place. Okay, we want that one there. We want that one there. That's all we need to do. Now we just need to make sure our bones match up. And don't forget, at any time, you've got your original model here so that we see it comes down from the hip, down to his knee, down to his ankle, down to his foot. All we have to do is simulate that. So we're going to take the BL up thigh, go from his hip, down to his knee, come here, you, down to his ankle, down to his foot, and I'll just extend the foot nub just out that, come here, you, just out that little bit. There we go. And don't forget, anytime you put a new piece in, you can just hit preview like that, grab his foot, and you can test it and make sure that he can scratch himself and run and do whatever else he needs to do. Beautiful. Let's drop in the other foot. This is the BR something. What is it? BR up thigh. Let's find that. BR up thigh. Beautiful. And the BR foot. You see what I mean about it being repetitive, right? This is not rocket science, guys. All I'm doing is swapping sprites around. It's the same process. We're doing the same thing in the face that we did in the body that we did in the face. So you don't have to go learning all new techniques all the time. It's all the same thing. That's what I love about this software. It's all just repetitious. We're just going to put these into the position that we want, put that there. Now we'll transform our bones. We know that that bone there needs to be on his thigh. And you can always turn the body invisible for a minute if you wanted to check it, but we know where it is. That one there's there. That one is his ankle. By the way, I hope in the comments, they're all nice and positive comments and you like what I'm doing because I can't see any of them. I don't want to get to the end of this and you go, oh, that was terrible. Okay, there's the hip. Hold down the E key and I can position my hip bone exactly where I want to be in the middle of his two rear legs. Perfect. Let's take a look at his front thighs. That won't take long to do. We'll quickly do those. FL up thigh, replace current element. FL up thigh, bring it in. Where's his foot? Let's do all four this time. FL foot, FL foot. Let's do FR up thigh, FR up thigh. Let's do FR foot, FR foot. We need to take each of those now and make them the same scale as everything else, which is 40. It'll only take a second. It's not bad that you can rig an entire character pretty much in an hour. Shows you how fast this software is. If you've got everything prepared and broken down into a sheet like I did, you can do this in no time. All right, let's bring that leg to around about, we reckon, about there. Bring that foot to around about there. Bring that foot, leg, to around about there. That one there. Bring it down to about there. Let's do our bones, nice and quick. Bone, knee bone, ankle bone, and foot bone. And move across. Once again, shoulder, knees, toes. I'm just putting these in real rough, guys. You can go back and make sure that you've got all your parts in and test it 100 times. Now, we need to make sure that that spine here, hold down your E key, is in between his shoulder blades, like that. All right, now, another really good tip. Whenever you're working with models, save them as you go. Because if you go and you make a mistake somewhere, you've got to go back and do everything again, which I hate. So if I go into my content manager here and I just hit save, and we'll just call this test. There we go. Just in case I need to come back to it if we get a blackout or something, there's my little pup that I can bring in at any time. Let's go into stage mode. Here is our dog build. Let's see how he goes. Let's just drop a motion onto our dog and see how he goes. Animals, dog. Actually, what I'm just going to do, just for the quick sake of it here, I'm going to move these bones, the two ear bones on this ear. I'm just going to move off his body there. I think that will give a better result. Now, let's go back and check him. All right, let's go to content, go to move, walk cycle, drag and drop it on there. And our dog is away. If we go down to here to our timeline, open up the motion timeline, you can see here is the motion on the timeline. If I move to the end of it, I can just drag that out and our little dog is going to walk along nicely like that. You can tidy up exactly where his feet and legs are to get him exactly where you want. And don't forget, because he's a 360 head, at any point, we can have him looking along like that. And then we can have him looking to the ground. And then we can have him looking behind himself. And looking up there. And then looking back. And then when we play our animation back, we've got our little dog walking around. No problem at all. Okay, great stuff. We've got our dog done. There is one thing I want to add to the dog that we haven't added yet. And if I go back here to animals, to my test, bring him back in, you'll notice in my original model that my dog had a collar. And just like the face, you can add as many different parts to the body as you want. You can give him a saddle or a blanket or shoes, whatever you want. Let's add the collar to our character. Take him into composer mode. That's where you have to add everything. Let's zoom in on him a little bit. The collar clearly has to be attached to his neck. So let's grab that first neck bone and we will create a new pivot point on which we can attach our collar. So we open up the bone editor, select add bone. Again, click it anywhere on screen. Hold it, hit escape to stop. Doesn't matter where you put it. Grab that bone, make sure that you've got transform bone selected. Now I can move this bone without affecting anything else. And we know we want the bone to be near his neck. We're going to associate a sprite with it, and that will be his collar, which we need to reduce to 40. Position it where we want, and we'll put it about there. Make sure that his head is in front of the collar, and there we have it. There is our dog, and he's all done. But the one thing he's missing are his eyeballs. We need to set up his iris so that we can get his facial puppetry moving around. Now, this is the one thing that we cannot do directly here in Cartoon Animator, sadly. We have to go outside. There are two different ways you can do this, depending on the artwork style that you use to build your original character. Okay, let's take him into composer mode, and I'll show you. Down here, we have two buttons. We have PSD, edit whole object in bitmap editor, or we have edit whole object in vector editor. Now, currently, my dog is vector. If I was using Affinity or what's the other one? Illustrator, if I was using either of those, I could export my dog out to those, make the changes, bring him back in, and he would stay vector. And that is a good thing to do if you can do it. And the reason for that is because if you use SVG, means that you can zoom your character as much as you want without getting any pixelation or blurring. And it also means that you get to take advantage of SVG color management in Cartoon Animator 5. So you can change the color of the dog, his eyes, his color, whatever. Sadly, I do not use either of those programs. As you know, I use CorelDRAW. But I still have the option of being able to do this by exporting my character as a PSD. So all I need to do is hit this button here. And that will give me the option to export my entire character as a PSD file. I'm not going to touch any of this. I don't need to. I just hit launch. It will tell me that it's going to convert my character into a bitmap from SVG. Yes, I have no choice but to click yes. Now it's going to open up my character in Photoshop with all of my layers in order. Okay, and we're ready now to add our iris in. I just want to take you through a quick tour of the folders here for those of you who don't know. First of all, we have the RL Bone folder. That folder contains, you can see them blinking on and off, that folder contains all of the bones of the body of your character. Next, we have the RL Talking Head folder, which contains a subfolder called RL Bonehead, RL Bone, Head Bone, which is all the bones for the head. And then we have the left, right, and center, which contains all of the sprites for the face, okay? And then at the bottom here, we have RL Image, which is all the sprites of the body. And you can replace any of these that you want. You can make changes to them anytime that you want, take it back to Cartoon Animator, easy. But for today, all we want to focus on is getting these eyes right. So let's open up our talking head. We want our center view. We want our left eye and right eye. Now, the final part of the webinar that I'm going to do here, for those of you who are really new, this is going to sound really tricky and really complicated. I know, because when I started, this was the bit I couldn't get. It took me a long, long time to get this right, okay? But I'm going to try and break it down for you in a way that will make it as easy as possible, because I promise, just like everything else that we've done, it's repetitious. Okay, it's the same 3 steps over and over and over. You just got to get them right. Let's first of all, I'll show you how the eyes work. If we have a look at his left eye, which is this eye here, okay, this eye here. If I expand that folder, you're going to see 6 different folders, which are all the different expressions for the eye that we saw. And we know we've got normal, smile, close, and eye squint that we're working on currently. If we work just on the normal folder, if I expand that, you'll see we have 3 more subfolders: iris, eye white, and mask. And you need to understand how these work. The iris is the little circle dot, the colored circle in the middle of your eye. That's it, nothing else. The eye white is all of the eye except for the iris. And the mask layer is only the white of the eye, okay? Understand those 3 things, and making eyes is really quite easy, all right? We've got a sprite in there already that we put in called LI normal that I just happen to name. We're going to use that as our eye white, right? Because it's the entire eye except for the iris. So I'm going to rename that eye white, and I'm going to drop it down here into the eye white folder. So now we have an eye white for the normal folder, okay? And let's collapse that for a second, and we'll do it again, this time with smile close. Now with smile close, right, here is, we'll turn off the normal. Here, for smile close, here is the sprite that we put in. So we're going to call that eye white, because it is all of the eye except for the iris. The eye is closed, doesn't even have an iris. We can drop that down into the eye white. Fantastic, get rid of smile close. And we're also doing eye squint. So here's the sprite that we put in for eye squint. So we're going to call that eye white. We're going to drop that into the eye white folder. So now it's in there. Now we've set up the sprites for the eye. While we're here, let's do the right eye, okay? So that we get our dog finished at the end. So under normal, iris, eye white, mask, here is our sprite that we've put in. We're going to call that eye white. We're going to drop that into the eye white folder. Turn that off for a second. We don't need it. Smile close. There's our sprite. Call it eye white. I hope that you're with me and this is all making sense. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I know there's a lot of folders here, guys, but stay with me. It's not that hard, I promise. Eye squint. Here's our sprite. Call it eye white. drop it down. So now we have the eye whites all set up for those 3 eye positions that we made. Now let's drop our iris in. Okay, let's just turn the right eye off altogether. Let's go back and have a look at the normal for the left eye, which is this sprite here. When we open it, we know we've got our eye sprite in there for the eye white. All right. We know we've got that sprite in there at the moment. We'll turn off eye squint so it doesn't affect anything. Okay, so we know that we've got our eye sprite in there, but we need an iris. Now, when I broke up my character into all the different parts, I have the iris broken up separately. So I'm going to save those now as individual parts. All right, put them on a new page, a little bit of white space around the outside, export it, and we'll call that iris right. Thank you. And the other one, this is iris left. There we go. File, export. We're going to call that iris left. Done. Perfect. Now, in Photoshop, let's open up that left iris. Open. C drive. Exports. Where is it? Here. Face parts, iris. Left iris. Let's open it up. There is my left iris. Select all, edit, copy it to the clipboard. We now have our iris on the clipboard. Let's select the iris folder for that. Oh, that's the right eye. Ooh, that was close. This is where you got to be careful because there's a lot of folders. There's the left eye, normal, iris. So let's select this folder, paste it in, and now it's pasted the iris into there. We just need to call our layer iris. I can now rescale it, whatever size that I want, reposition it to wherever I want, and now I have the iris in his eye. Fabulous. There is one more step that we need to do to finish off our normal, and that is to create the mask, okay? Because as I said, the mask layer is only the white of the eye, nothing else. Right? So here's how I create a mask layer. Take the eye white, duplicate it. It's in exactly the same spot. So now I have 2 copies of the eye white. I'm going to call that one mask, and I'm going to drop it down into the mask folder. Let's turn off the eye white for a moment. You can see now I have a sprite here called mask, but we only want the white of the eye. So grab your magic wand, select the white of the eye, inverse, delete, and you'll get rid of everything. And now all we have is the white of the eye. Here is the benefit. The mask layer means that when the iris is over the top of the mask layer, it will be visible. When it moves outside of it, it will be invisible. You can't see it. So that's how your mask layer works. So now we've got that set up. We need to have an iris in any of the eye sprite, any of the eye shapes that are open where you can see his eye. So that means in the smile close, we don't need to worry. It's all finished. Doesn't need an iris, doesn't need a mask, just needs the eye white. Done. But we do need it in eye squint, okay? When he squints his eye, the eyelid covers, but we still need to be able to see the iris. And you want to make sure that your iris is in exactly the same spot for every eye shape, because if it's in a different spot, it's going to flicker and move around. Here's the easiest way to do that. Grab the iris, the original one we had there, duplicate it. We can call it iris because that's what it is, but we need to get this iris down into this folder for eye squint. And all I need to do is hold down my left mouse button, drag it down, and now I have it in there. So if we turn off normal, there we go. We now have the eye squint layer has an iris for it as well, but it doesn't have a mask layer yet. If I open up the eye white, you can see there's the eye white. There it is there. There's the eye white, but we need a mask layer. So again, duplicate the eye white, duplicate, and we're going to call it mask. I'm going to drop that mask down into here. Okay, so now I have the mask layer, but we only want the mask layer to be the white of the eye. So grab your magic wand, select the white of the eye, inverse, delete everything else, boom. Now you've just got yourself a mask layer. Okay, so that is the left eye done. It's 11:58. I've got 2 minutes to go. We're absolutely flying through this. I am extremely pleased that we've managed to do this in an hour. Let's do the right eye while we're here. Let's check it all out. For the right eye, let's bring in the iris. Where is the right iris? Did I call it iris right? Okay, there's our iris. Select all, edit, copy. See what I mean? Repetition. Repetition is the key to learning. Iris, grab your folder, edit, paste, edit, transform, scale. We're going to resize it. Put it in there, and we're going to rename it Iris. Now we have the eye white, but we don't have a mask. To create a mask, we're going to duplicate the eye white. We're going to call that mask. We're going to drop the mask down into the mask folder. Then we've now got the mask there. Beautiful. Then grab the white of the eye, select, inverse, delete everything else. Done. That's taken care of the normal. Let's turn that off. We don't need to worry about smile close. We do need to worry about eye squint. We're going to need an iris for it. So let's take the iris from the normal, duplicate it, rename it to iris. Where's our eye squint for the right eye? Down here is the folder there. Let's take that iris, drop it down there into eye squint. Eye squint now has an iris, so we can turn off the normal. We can look at it. Beautiful. There's our eye white. Duplicate the eye white. Call it mask. Take the mask, drop it in there. On the mask layer, select the eye white, inverse. Done. All right. That takes care of how we set up our eyes. But this is where the magic really happens in this software, and it never ceases to amaze me. Once you've made all your changes in here, in order to get it to update in Cartoon Animator, all you have to do is to hit File, Save. That's it. Right now, Cartoon Animator and Photoshop are having a nice little conversation between each other where your character is being updated for Cartoon Animator and your dog now has eyes. How good is that? And now, if I select my dog's face and I have a look at his eyes, you will see that I have the smile close and I have the eye squint, which I can go through and I can set up using the facial animation setup. I can click on the iris of the eye and just look at the little button here and it'll tell you that's the right pupil setup. Beautiful. Looking right, looking left. You can change where you want it to be, right? So if I want it up there, I want it down there, and see how the mask layer is working for us, right? You do that with each eye. You can even mirror it to the other eye, work out where you want them, work out how you want his brows to look just based on the model here. All you've got to do is to match the shapes up. Just grab your deform, change your shapes up. You can even hit the mirror options and apply it. It will automatically apply to the other side. Grab the outside of the eye here so that you've got the expressions for your facial puppetry. That's what it looks like when he squints, when he goes wide, when he gets angry, and when he looks sad. You can save your motion profiles there. And then when we take our dog back into here, finally, if I go into here with my face key editor, not only can I rotate my dog's head around any way that I want, I can now select his eyes and I can move them around inside of his head, and I can change the expression on his face by swapping the sprites, and the eyes will be masked beautifully around with his head. That's it, guys. That's all I can show you. We're done. Now, we've done that in exactly 1 hour, which just makes me crazy happy that we managed to do that. Everything I did was repetitive. It's the same thing over and over. I know we went through it really fast, but it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. You can just keep going back over this and over it. If you've got any questions, send them to me. Now we're going to open it up to the webinar, to the Q&A, where we can ask some questions. Kai, I'm going to take a break and have a drink. I'm going to take it over to you.
Right on. Thanks for that, Gary. That was awesome. Really cool just to kind of see the master at work here going through all the different steps. It does, there's a couple of things like Gary said, you have to repeat, but once you get the finished product, you can use it forever. You can save it and use it in all sorts of different scenarios and edit it. So it's well worth the effort to get all that stuff taken care of.
That's the beautiful thing. It's the same thing over and over. If you want to make a cat now you do the same steps you make a cat. You want to make a person, you do the same. That's what I love about it. It's just the same thing. You don't have to learn new stuff every day. It's the same stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Right on. Yeah, so thanks so much for that. Like
Pleasure.
I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we're going to have a little Q&A session here. So if you guys have any questions, looks like we already got some questions in the Q&A section there. Gary and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. I just got a few comments here from Uwe. Please just put your questions in the Q&A. So we're not going to be answering questions from the chat. Feel free to put whatever in the chat, uh, clean language, please. But we'll be answering questions from the Q&A. So let's get started with the first one here. From Mr. Nehemiah Jackson asks, can MP4 files be used in the Cartoon Animator 5 without outside software? Yes, absolutely they can. MP4 would be video files, I would assume. So you can bring those in, click and drag them into Cartoon Animator, and it should be fine. So
Yep.
answers that question for you. Question from John Prettel. I recently created an 8-minute animation. Congratulations, John. That's actually quite a long time for an animation.
There it is.
Yeah, the size was over 500 megabytes. I'm new to this and wondered what size should my props be. Wondering if my files are likely too big. Thanks.
That's a good question. I tell you, if you're using PNG files, then yeah, your files can often end up too big. But if you're here's the best tip I can give you. If you're making an 8-minute animation, don't do it as one shot. Okay, don't do it as one project file. Do all of your different camera shots as individual projects, and then edit it all together in external software like CapCut or something like that in the end. You don't want to, I would never do an 8-minute video all in one piece. Okay. You break it all up into smaller pieces. But as far as your file size of props, if you break it up into smaller pieces, it really doesn't matter. Using vector files, it's going to be much smaller. But even when I use PNG files, sometimes I'll do them at 300 DPI at up to sort of 10 inches in height, which can be massive so that I don't get any pixelation. But it doesn't matter because I make sure my project files are shorter.
Yeah, coming from an environment like a 3D environment where I use stuff like Unreal and Maya
Mm,
and whatnot, 500 megabytes is like that's it.
nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, but like Gary mentioned, the best thing to do is just split all your projects up into like smaller, more
Yep.
chewable bites, I guess. I don't know what I'm talking about. All
Yep. No,
right.
you're right.
Let's go to the next one from Esther here. Esther Clark. I know it's a bit off topic, but can you link many characters to use in Puppet Stage to not only do the same actions/movements, but also to look in the direction the mouse is moving? My characters can do the same movements when I use the mouse, only the main character follows with its eyes my mouse, and the second character keeps the eyes in the same position.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Puppet Stage only works for one character at a time. I can't demo anything with Puppet Stage on here because in order to do it, I really need to use the webcam. And today's not really about Puppet Stage. But yeah, no, you can only if you've got multiple characters in the scene, then you would animate them one at a time.
Yeah, I think even if you're applying the same animation that includes eye movement to both the characters, like if you have that on your trigger, both the characters' eyes should move. So if you record it previously and then apply it on a trigger to your character using Puppet Stage, that should probably be your workaround, Esther. Hopefully that'll work for you.
And just quickly, another really good workaround for Esther too is if you do an animation, you can always save it as a perform, like what's an action called a perform, which will save all of your body movements, face movements all at the same time, and then you can apply that to a different character.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. You can just
Yeah,
basically assign a perform to a certain trigger, like a
yeah.
Q button or something like that,
Mhm.
and that would be what you would do. But
Yep. And
seems like yeah,
if you want more advice on that, Esther, put that question in the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook group, and everybody will jump all over it and help you on that one. So post that in there. That's a good question.
holy smokes. All right, Esther has a bunch of questions here. We'll go through them. We got
Yeah.
some time. So how did Gary Pye link to 360 heads? I saw in an interview he created a character named Clang, and he
Yes.
used the 360 head to create the body and link the 360 head. You want to do that, Gary?
Okay, look, that was a complete out of the box tricky magic trick that I did there. What I did, that was done through some clever camera editing and cuts and stuff like that. But essentially what I did, I had one character that was a complete head and body with a 360 head, but then I used the 360 head model, but I built a body in there. Right? It was a standalone body. So the body could turn just like a head can turn because you can use it to make anything. I've made it be a tennis ball, a UFO, you name it, right? And then what I did was I had the body and then I had the head. They were two completely separate items. I just sat one over the other and animated them individually. So it was a sleight of hand magic trick, but at the time, yeah, it works great. It's a terrific way. We don't have a 360 body turn. It's a great way of getting around it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like just thinking outside the box and just
Yeah, that's what you
being
got to do.
resourceful with what you got. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, and it's a good time to just jump in and just say one thing I always say about this software is don't start a project and ask yourself, can the software do this? Start a project and go, how do I make the software do this? Because I promise you, anything you want to do, you can do it.
Absolutely. Good advice. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of effort,
Yeah,
Another question 3 from Esther here. Well, I'm still struggling with character creating a four-eyed character. I created
that's a good
two.
question.
Um,
I don't know
I
if you
created two
can.
characters as suggested, but all the eyes won't move simultaneously while using the puppet stage. Yeah, so I think that's kind of related to your first question there, Esther,
I don't
regarding
think you
puppet stage.
to the best of my knowledge, and you know what? You know, the perfect person to answer this would probably be David Arundel. He'd know. But I think you can't have a character with more than two eyes. I've never seen a character with more than two eyes. You can obviously have one with one because you can delete one. If I wanted to create a character that had four eyes, what I would do is I wouldn't do it with facial puppetry. What I would do is with sprite swapping. So I would add four eyes onto the face, but each of those eyes would already have pre-made positions set up for the eyeballs, which I could switch between to simulate the movement.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of all the kind of ways you could probably get a workaround to
Yeah,
create four
you
eyes
could
on a
do it.
character.
That's a really good
Yeah.
one. Because I did a three-eyed character once. I made a three-eyed, the big fat guy in the t-shirt with the sunglasses. Yeah, I made a three-eyed character once, but in order to do it, yeah, I had to do it. So it was sprite swapping, like you do with the mouth, where as he looks to the left, that's one sprite, and as he looks forward, that's a different sprite. But yeah, you can do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking the only other kind of creative way to do it would be to if you have a completely second head and you hide everything on the second head
Oh,
except for the eyes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How good is that? That's really clever. You create a second head, make everything invisible except for that eye, link it to the head, and then it's going to move with the head. Oh, that's very clever, Kai.
Yeah, supply the same animations, should be good to
That's
go.
clever. You know, I totally want to go make a four-eyed character now because of that. That's clever. I love it.
All right, we'll do Esther's last question. We got a bunch more
Yep.
to get to here. So she's having problems copying and pasting the face in 360. Usually destroys the character where I copied. Can you read the question as well there, Gary?
Yep, I can see it. It usually destroys the character where I copied it, and it ends up pasting all wrong in the same area where I copied my character's face instead of the area selected to paste. Okay, just without even reading any more of that, I don't use the paste function in the 360 head setup. I bring all my pieces in individually. I rarely use the mirror function because even the mirror function I find sometimes won't give me exactly the results I want. And I don't use the copy and paste function inside the 360 head. I bring all my parts in individually. So
Yeah, and
that's
I would say maybe the only other thing I can probably suggest would be to just save the head as a head in your content manager first, and
yep,
then instead of copying and pasting, and then just do the editing
yep,
after that. There's always a workaround. I'd have to, obviously go through more troubleshooting because
yep.
Esther's question is a paragraph long here. It's very detailed. So,
Yeah, no.
uh,
But yeah, the best thing I can tell you is don't use the paste function. Just bring in all your new parts. It's easier.
yeah, I'd probably recommend just going on the Facebook group, like Gary
Yep,
said.
yep. Get
There's
on the
tons of people
Cartoon
there.
Animator Users Facebook group. We'll
Yeah.
help you out. We'll sort it out. Easy.
All right. Vicky mentions, "Hi Gary, I can't draw. So if I want to make my own dog from a cartoon on Google, cartoon picture on Google, how do I save the parts and where do I save them to?" Thanks.
Okay, that's a really good question because you know what? It's when we started with Cartoon Animator like 10 years ago, if you couldn't draw, you were in a bit of trouble, right? You were kind of stuck and you went, well, I can't make characters. Nowadays, artificial intelligence, you can create any of the characters you want, right? You can go on there and get artificial intelligence if you want to create you a dog character. All you have to do then is to take it into Photoshop and break up all the individual parts like you see here that I did with mine. Is my screen still sharing? Can you still see my screen?
Yep. You're good.
Right. So just like I did here, all you need to do is to break up all of these individual parts, right? And the great thing is let's say, for instance, this was my photo or my artificial intelligent picture of a dog, right? The problem is once I cut that leg out, right? If I cut that leg out and I move it, the leg still stays there. But the great thing with Photoshop now is it has a thing called generative fill, which means I can trace around the outside there, and then I can get Photoshop to fill in what was there after the leg was removed. And I might even do a demo of that separately. I can't do it today, but I might do a demo of that to show you what you can do, because it's amazing. Yeah, you can do that. And then all you need to do is, as I've done down here, save all of your body and face parts individually, export each of them as an SVG or an EPS, BMP, whatever you want, and then import them directly into your sprite editor in composer mode and just swap all your parts in. But yeah, Vicky, jump on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group, post that question. I'll take you through it step by step, really easy.
Yeah, it's basically all comes down to a little bit of Photoshop foo. Either way
Oh,
you
Photoshop's come so far.
yeah.
Like I used to have to do it all by hand, right? And you'd have to try and rebuild all the parts that were missing. Now you hit a button and it just regenerates it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've used that on occasion myself.
I use it every day.
Right on. Okay, we got anonymous attendee asking when Cartoon Animator 5.4 is going to be released.
Can't
I
tell
think
you.
that's, yeah, I can't really tell you. It should be next quarter though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I can honestly say? I do know it's coming. I don't know the date. Even if I knew the date, I'd go, oh, I know, but I can't tell you. I don't know the date yet. So it's not going to be in the next week or anything.
Yeah, not in the next week, I don't think,
No,
unless there's some kind of miracle.
no, no.
All right. Another anonymous question here. Do we need to create a separate rig for shading if the character moves in and out of bright or dark areas? This is a good question. Gary, you want to take that one? How would you
Yeah,
do
sure.
it?
Look. To be perfectly honest, if you had a character that wanted, if I had this dog and he wanted to move into the light or the dark, if I was going to do that, here's the process that I would do. I would first record the animation with the dog in the light like this. Then using either if it's a vector character, then I would use the SVG color adjustment to go and darken all the colors. Or if it's BMP based, you can't. You really need to do it with SVG. I would darken the dog, then film a second version of it so you'd have one version of the dog doing the animation in the light, one version of the dog doing it in the dark. Then in my video editing software, which for me, I use CapCut, I would layer the two different videos and I would use a mask for where the dog goes in and out of the light. So the same animation plays, but as it gets to a point, part of the light will play, part of the dark will play. And I know that doesn't help because I'm not using visuals, but yeah, that's another good thing that would be really good to do a test a demo on, because yeah,
Yeah.
it's not hard to do. I would do it with two different versions. Or if you're really good at After Effects, then you just do it straight in After Effects. I, however, am no good at After Effects.
Yeah, I was gonna just basically say I'd probably just click in shadow effect in After Effects, boom, done.
You know what? I tried After Effects. I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I'm not
Oh,
kidding. I had it, and I had the subscription, and I did the tutorials, and I'm just way too dumb for After Effects.
well, we also have the After Effects plugin for those of you who do use After Effects.
But
You
it's
can
smart.
basically send your entire Cartoon Animator scene to After Effects and apply all the special effects that come with After Effects. Generally used for 3D or kind of semi 3D environments like we have in Cartoon Animator. We do have a Z-axis
Yep,
3D environment.
and can I just say, for those of you that are sitting there like me now going, no, no chance of me ever doing that because I can't use After Effects, you can do, I would say, 80% of the effects that After Effects can do, you can do in CapCut, which is really, really easy to use for dumb people like me.
All
I'm
right.
not kidding. I'm not kidding. You can do some great stuff. Yep, go on.
For those of you who aren't aware, our team did post the Facebook group in the chat there as well.
Oh, good,
So you
good.
can
Yeah,
join
come and
that
join
link
us.
there. Yeah. Just to Dada here, we're going to only be answering questions from the Q&A. So put your questions
Yep.
in the Q&A there. All right. Vicky says we answered her question. Okay. Lauren asks, how do you save your dog into the custom actor folders? Good question.
Okay. Easy peasy. So once my dog is done, let's say that's my dog. I go into the content folder here. I'm underneath here. I have actors. And then all I need to do is to hit save. And I just name him and I call him Puppy. And I hit OK. And then my dog will be saved there. And at any point, I can just drag and drop him direct back to stage mode. But one thing you want to make sure is make sure when you save your character that you don't have any animation applied or anything like that. Okay, just save the character.
Yep. Good idea. All right. So Pauline asks, can you add spring bones in the ears and tail? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We do
for
have,
sure.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, no, for sure you
it's not too
can.
hard to do.
No, you know what? It's really easy. In fact, I'm going to show you. If you go to his tail here, watch this. This is really easy. If we go to his tail here, right, click the tail and we go to spring bones. There's my spring editor. We create a new folder and we call it tail, right? And then all you need to do is to select the bones that you want to be in the spring bone, right? So you never pick the first one because that needs to work as an anchor point. Always pick the second one. If I pick the second one, assign it to the group, it will assign any of the bones after it. They're all the same color now. They're all orange, right? So if I hit preview and I move the tail, his tail will wag with spring bones. That's it. So yeah, that's pretty easy. That's
Right
about as
on.
easy. Yeah, that's the easiest question you'll ever get. Yeah. And you know what? You can use spring bones for everything. Everything. Like from hair and clothing and tails and props, you name it. Spring bones are awesome.
Yeah, spring bones are definitely awesome. So yeah, that's how you do it, Pauline, in a couple
Yep.
seconds. Hopefully it helped you out there. Uwe asks, thanks for the webinar, Gary. I want to create an animal character that sometimes stands upright like a human and sometimes walks on all four like an animal. So would I need to create two puppets for the character, one standing and one walking on all fours, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah,
If I
probably.
wanted
Yeah.
to, if I wanted to do that, I'd create two different characters, one on all fours, one that's upright, and then I would use a clever little camera cut when the character's going to go from one to the other, so that like if you had him in a scene, you would cut to see something else, cut back, and then he would be standing up. I would not attempt to do it all in one shot.
Yeah, definitely. You can blend it all together in,
Yeah.
kind of sneaky ways.
Camera cuts are everything. I love this next question. I love this next question.
Esther again here. When creating hands, why when I turn my hand to a different pose, upside down, the outline that wasn't on the top shows in the bottom, making the fingers weird.
It does. I think now I have a feeling this is really good. I'm glad I get to explain this actually. I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but I think Esther might be referring to my characters from the Toonsfolk series. Okay. And I'll show you why. When I developed these characters, I decided to add in one extra feature that wasn't in most characters, and that is the little line on their hand here. Okay. Right on. All right. So I don't know why that's come up. Right. So you see that she's got the line on her hand there, right? So what happens when you go to your hand here, and I move everything around, when I grab the left hand, okay, and I'm going to change it, right? That looks fine. The little line inside of her hand looks fine. But if I flip that hand, so I grab the left hand, if I flip it, now you can see that that line is on the outside of the hand and you don't want it to be there, right? So what you've got to do is just go to the SVG color management, go to the body, go to the skin, and you'll find that I have folders in here for the L hand palm line and the L hand highlight. This is the palm line. This is the highlight. So if I grab the highlight, make it invisible, if I grab that, make it invisible. Now you get rid of the palm line on the outside. Play around with the SVG color management in your characters because they will often make some of the most amazing adjustments. Like for just while we've got her open, like for instance, you can go to the clothing, go to her beads here, and you can just completely change the color of the beads just by dragging your sliders. So make sure you go in there and play around with that. But that answers the question for the handle line. I think that was Esther's problem.
Okay, cool. If not, Esther, feel free to pipe up again there. We got a question from Pierre Fontaine. When you preview
Yep.
the animation, the legs deform strangely and the feet didn't always line up. Is the
Yep.
tweaking process time-consuming and complicated?
Okay. All right. You're absolutely right because you're absolutely right. Let's investigate that because you, sir, are correct. The reason that it happened is because I had 1 hour to do this. I didn't have time to fiddle around tweaking places, right? So I'm just having a look. Yeah, there's no animation on him. So if we put an animation on that dog as he is right now, particularly this foot here, I noticed it myself, but the front foot on the right did not move properly. Okay. But as I said throughout the webinar, don't worry if that happens because you can always go back and change it. So if I put that motion on him and then slow it down, you can see in particular, right? He's looking good to there, but watch this foot here. It doesn't quite look, it's not, see, it dislocates there. It doesn't look right, right? Pierre is absolutely correct. So all you need to do is to grab your dog, go into composer mode, and then zoom in so you can see it. And all you're going to do is tweak around, play around with where your bones are located. Okay. So, you can just grab that bone, move it to there and then test it, move it to there and then test it. And eventually your character will move better. You can just keep tweaking everything before you finish your character.
Yeah, this issue stems from characters with different proportions.
Yep.
So Gary's dog actually has slightly longer limbs than the default dog that we have that has the animations. So those
Yep.
animations we have are created specifically for that dog with those proportions. If you
Mhm.
have something with slightly longer legs, that's kind of how it will compensate. It's called
Yep.
retargeting. And yeah, you'll have to generally fix that manually in Cartoon Animator. So
Yep.
3D, we have automatic retargeting sort of things where it automatically does that. But in cases like this, then yeah, it's a manual fix.
Yep.
It's only a couple of keyframes though, to be honest. Something like that is not too tricky. And then you can save it. You can save the edited animation and you can reapply it as many times as you want later. You don't have to fix it every time.
Yep.
Cool. Hope that answers your question there, Pierre. Next question is from Buck Jones. Is it possible to make a dog character that can switch from a side view to a 45-degree angle? What
No.
do you think?
First of all, the answer to that one is really easy. No, you have to create two different rigs. So you do a side-facing character, then you can do a forward-facing character. And I don't believe there is a forward-facing animal character for dogs and horses and stuff like that I know of. I don't think there is.
No.
And second of all, Buck Jones, you have the coolest name in the webinar today.
No kidding. Buck
Yeah, I know,
Jones.
there's a retro comic book character if ever I've heard it. Buck Jones, I love it. That's a great name. But no, you need to create different characters, and there's no forward facing for the animals.
Yeah, unfortunately, no forward facing for the animals at this
Sorry.
time. That's coming up later. But all
Yep.
right, another anonymous attendee here says when you save from Photoshop back into CTA 5, do you lose the SVG format since Photoshop saves as a bitmap?
Absolutely. In order to not lose the SVG format, you need to export it to an SVG software. Where are we? Here we go. If we go into composer mode here, remember the two buttons down the bottom that I mentioned before. There's this one here. This one's grayed out because he's now PNG. But if on this one here, that will export out to SVG if you have Affinity or Illustrator, neither of which I have.
Right on, yeah. So apologies for that. Let's go to the next question from Sheila
I don't
Werleman.
understand this
Can you
question.
make parallax tutorials with using motion graphics videos?
I
Have you
don't I
tried
don't
that?
understand what Sheila means by motion graphics videos. You can
Yeah.
certainly do parallax camera movement in Cartoon Animator. Absolutely. That's really easy. But I don't know what you mean by motion graphics. So you can, for instance, this is a really good example. This is a scene that I made, right? Just jump back a little bit, go into camera mode. Jump back. Okay, this is a scene that I made, right? And it has parallax movement so that when you move side to side or up and down, if, for instance, we take this rock here and bring it really, really close to camera, right? Say, make it 500. If we were to put that there, now when we move the camera around, we get a lot more feeling of depth because that rock is clearly closer to camera, right? You can do that. I'm just not sure. I'm not entirely sure, Sheila, what you mean by motion graphics. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe Sheila, if you want to put in the chat, if you want to kind of reiterate what you're mentioning there. Let's go to the next question anyways, first from Wall Boozy. Create a character in SVG, import it, then go to image editor, or do the image editor right away. What's the fast and better way to save time?
It's sort of got create a character as SVG, import it, and then go to image editor to edit
Let's
it,
open it.
or do image editor right away. I don't understand. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I think what he's talking about is you can take the SVG directly into Cartoon Animator. You don't need to save it as a PSD first. I think that might be what
No.
he's.
Yeah,
No,
look,
yeah,
my way of best thing I can tell you is my way of doing it is I create my character like that. I break everything up into a sheet like that I showed you. I export all of these parts as SVG. Then I bring it into Cartoon Animator. I drop a model into here, and then I drop all my parts on it. However, that's one way of doing it. However, then if we go into Cartoon and if we go into CorelDRAW for a minute, also, that's one way of doing it. That's the way I used to design characters. Nowadays, when I design characters, right, I will do it like this. So if we look at Toons, where I'm just trying to move some screens around. Toonsfolk, characters, everyday, go with this one here and that one there. That is my build in CorelDRAW for this particular character. I've got the entire thing built in here, which I find is a lot faster because then once I've got the character built and all my layers are in order, all I have to do is export the entire SVG out, and then I can drop the entire SVG into Cartoon Animator, and then I just have to set up my 360 head. So yeah, that's the way I work now. But I find the process that I did today is better for people who are just starting out on making characters. You don't necessarily need to know the most complicated way in order to make a good looking character.
absolutely. Okay. I think this is Yui's follow-up question from before. What should the maximum length of a single film snippet be created in Cartoon Animator 5? What's your
Okay.
standard?
I gotta be honest, I don't think I rarely ever go over 2000 frames. Rarely, very rarely will I go over 2000 frames for a single shot. I just get to the point, and you know what it is? It's got nothing to do with file size or anything like that. It's got to do with the fact that MTV taught us in the 1980s that you need to do short, sharp, fast camera cuts in order to hold a audience's attention. There is nothing worse than watching a video of a guy walking from one side of the room to the other that goes for a minute without a camera shot, without a camera cut. And it's just this slow pan and you go, oh my God, this is so boring. I like to try and keep the cameras moving and cutting.
Yeah,
So
I find that for cartoons, when you're talking about like 2D cartoons, generally you're not going to have long tracking shots like you would in something like
no.
what's that war movie that
Oh,
that really
1917.
yeah, that one. Yeah, it's like the long ass tracking
Yeah.
shot in the beginning. It's awesome. But generally when you're talking with cartoons, you're a few seconds generally,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's more interesting if you keep your eyes and your brain engaged moving around the screen. It's just more interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, let's go to the next couple questions here. One from Conce Broders.
Well,
If you
we've done
wanted
that.
to ears and tail
Yep.
to bounce, yeah. We talked about the spring bones there, so hopefully that answered
Same
your
with Sheila.
question.
We did that because well, actually, you know what? Hang on one second for Sheila, because I have a feeling Sheila's question might be a little bit different. Okay, so Sheila, I don't have the spring bones in there at the moment because I didn't save it with spring bones. But when you say how do you make the dog's tail wag? One way, if I wanted the dog just standing there and just wanted his tail to wag, right? One way of doing that is to go here into your 2D motion editor, right? And sorry, I got all these screens I got to move around, right? And then we grab our bone there and down on our timeline down the bottom here, we will, where are we? Where are we? Here we go. Oh, for some reason there we go. We got a motion and then we've got our point there. Then we move forward on the timeline and you can reposition all of your bones, right? So that his tail goes up. And then you can move forward and you can have it so that it goes down and then you can move forward, etc., etc., etc. You can even save that motion and then you can get your dog wagging his tail. And the good thing is these little red keyframes here are your full body keyframes. If you move them in a little bit closer, you'll find that his tail will wag faster. And if you spread them out, they'll go longer. You can copy them, you can paste them. A lot of different ways that you can work with your keyframes. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Let's go to the next one here from Rick. Anyways, a newbie question. There's no such thing as a newbie question, right?
No, there's only questions, not newbie questions.
Yeah. How or where would be a good place to start getting SVG parts for the dog or other characters? You're
Artificial
probably
intelligence, if you can't draw, if you can draw them yourself, just break your dog up into individual parts. Here's a good example. This character that I did here, right? There's the head, there's the torso, there's the arms, legs, everything's broken up into all individual pieces. And then even with the head, you've got, every individual part of the head is broken up into all individual pieces. It just depends how much attention to detail you want to go to in order to do this. That's all. Like sometimes you can do a really simple character, sometimes you can do a really detailed character. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, and I think that kind of runs into the next question we have here from anonymous attendee asking
Yep.
about any software you can use to make a character in 3D but have it look 2D, like when it's rendered, and skip the
Depends.
whole sprite setup.
Okay, look, that really depends on the look that you want to go for. Like iClone, for instance, has the ability to make your characters look like cartoons, look more flat. And I got to tell you, there are some guys out there that are achieving the look on that, which is nearly as good as that movie they made called Klaus. I mean, they're some of these guys are doing insane stuff, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of years I can do the same sort of thing. But yeah, I can't name specific software that can take 3D animation, make it look at 2D outside of the software that we use here, because this is the only software I use. I use Cartoon Animator. I'm now using iClone and Character Creator and stuff like that, and Blender, but I don't use a lot of other software.
All right, I'm not quite sure about this next question. How can the removed characters make the bones difficult to wear?
um,
I
no,
mean,
I don't understand the question.
I think
How
you have
can
to
the
maybe a bit clearer.
the bones difficult to wear? No, don't understand that one. I'm sorry.
All right. From Dada, maybe we'll get back to that.
Sorry about that.
Nehemiah asks, what would be the best way to take a front-facing character and make it a side-facing character so that the side-facing motion can work?
Okay, you've got to completely do a rebuild. It only works on people characters, doesn't work on animals. It'll only work on humans. But you've got your forward fate. Here we go. Let's have a look. Where is it? Here. Under your templates here, under human, you've got all your different human folders here, right? So these ones down here are good. Okay, so you've got, get rid of the dog. So there is your forward facing character. There is your side facing character. You would go through all the process that I showed today or in the other webinars that I've done. You swap all your character parts out, but you do have to do it for both characters. You can't do one and then copy it across to the other character.
Okie dokes. Next one from the same guy. What should I do if the
Yep.
bound character bones will wear out? I'm not sure about that question
I
either.
don't know what you mean by wear out. They won't wear. If you mean they don't work, what should I do if the bound character bones won't work? Then I can show you that. If I don't know if this is going to answer your question or not, but I did cover this during the webinar. If we go into here and have a look at this, for instance, let's say on that back leg though, right? If I hit preview, that back leg moves like that, right? Right now he's taking a whiz. That's what he looks like, okay? But if I take my bone here on the thigh and I pop it out there, see how these bones go gray? That's because they're not working now. They're not associated with a sprite. Now, if I move that leg, you're going to get weird motion where the foot will dislocate away from the leg. That's because the leg bone doesn't come down to the foot bone. Now it's blue. You've got your bones have to stay inside your sprites. There you go. That's the best way of saying it. I hope that
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah, the bones basically just drive the images that are the sprites. So you have to make
Yeah.
sure they're one on top of the other.
Yep.
Pierre asks a good question here. Can the Z-axis be revised to allow foreground artwork to move in and out of focus based on its position to the camera? In other words, some sort of depth of field effect.
It's post-production. You do that in After Effects or CapCut.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, there's no. Were they planning? I can't remember. I think there was something like that possibly coming in the next version. Didn't we get a demo on that?
I haven't seen anything. I genuinely haven't seen anything about blurring. But you know what? This is only my opinion. This is only my opinion right now. I don't know of anything that's coming, so I truly don't. But I wouldn't need it personally. It'd be handy. Look, it would be handy, okay? But in post-production, don't forget you can export all your layers out of Cartoon Animator so that you can rebuild it in post-production in After Effects or CapCut. And then each of those layers you can affect individually. So you can blur them, or you can change their color or their darkness or whatever. So I personally, I would just do it in post-production. It would be handy if you could do it in Cartoon Animator. Don't get me wrong. That would be cool. So, oh, I love Anita's question. Hi, Anita. Love Anita.
All right, yeah. So hers is extra
Okay.
neck bones for long neck quadrupeds like giraffes or brachiosauruses.
Yeah. You should be able to do it, and you can't do it, and it annoys the pants off me. Why, if I have my neck there, or if I have my spine here and I open up my bone editor, why can't I have insert? Insert is blurred out and it will not let me insert. The reason for it is because the characters are relying so much on pre-made motions that would get all completely confused if there were extra bones because they wouldn't know where they need to move. But it would be nice if it came with a disclaimer that, hey, adding this new bone means you have to keyframe your character now. You can no longer use pre-made motions, because I'd be clicking the heck out of it, because I would love to be able, I would love, in my characters, I would love one more bone in the upper torso so that you can get a nice curve of the spine when you bend over instead of just bending from the hip. Yes. So Anita, if put it in the suggestion box at Reallusion on their site, because I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah, good answer there. Yeah, unfortunately, like Gary mentioned, the templates motions are all kind of restricted
Yeah,
rather to
which
those.
is fair enough.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll have a Brontosaurus template. Let's go to the next question anyways from Nehemiah here. What would be the way to take a front-facing character? Okay, this is the same one
Yep,
that we
yep,
had
I
before, so
answered
just
that
to
one.
repeat. Yeah. Sheila says,
Thanks,
thanks, got
Sheila.
it.
Glad we helped.
Hello, Sheila. Anonymous attendee. Has there already been a
Somebody's looking out
giveaway?
for the prizes.
Yeah, so we're going to be giving you the prizes. We're going to be notifying everyone about if they won the prize after the webinar. You have to fill out the survey first, right? So just make sure you fill out the survey, and we'll email you the codes for the products if you win. So good luck, everyone.
Okay, I can tackle this one.
Sure.
Okay, so asking if the available animal motions can be adjusted to a giraffe or a stag or another animal. The simple fact is, I find personally that the dog motions work brilliantly on any character. I've done goats and donkeys, and even if I do a horse, I generally use the dog motion because we're talking about cartoon characters generally here, not realistic motion. If you were working in iClone and you had a dog, you'd want it to, or a giraffe, you'd want it to move realistically. Here it's all about cartoons. And I find that the dog motions work brilliantly on any four-legged character. I really do. And when you say also, I request a similar webinar for human G3s, I've actually already filmed 2 of those, and they're available on the Reallusion YouTube channel.
All right. Yep. Good. No need to go more into that. Another question from Esther. How to make a transition to a different sprite in 360 head look more smooth looking while turning?
Okay, that's a great question. Jerry, I used to worry about that. Okay, I used to really worry about that. Here's a really good example. I used to worry about that a lot because, I wanted to make sure everything was perfectly smooth. What I've realized, and I won't take up too long here, but there's 2 demos that I can give you here that really shows you a good way of working this. If I go up to my characters here, human, and I go to the Pro Series and I go to Evan. Right, this particular character, I was really, really worried about making sure that I got a nice, smooth 360 head rotation on it, right? So if you look at Evan here, right, as he moves his head, the sprites are swapping, okay, but he gets a really, really nice, smooth transition. And the reason for that, pardon me, the reason for that is because when you're building your 360 head, you add in more of these angles, because you can add in up to 25 angles, right? So that, for instance, when I go to this angle in between, right, I can make more slight adjustments. Then I go to that one. Okay, so you're basically trying to get as smooth a transition as possible. But that's the way I used to do it, right? I would add more and more different angles. But what I realized over time, particularly with 2D animation, is, and the perfect example are my Toonsfolk characters here, right? And I'm going to show you something that I don't normally demonstrate because when you see it in slow motion, it looks terrible. And so I don't do it. But these characters have sprite swapping when they turn their head left and right. Okay, so that if we go to our sprites here, look at the face, look at the shape of his face there. That's the shape of his face when he's looking forward. Okay, but I need to go into composer mode to show you this. Right, so that is, where is it? Here we go. Sprite. That is the shape of his face looking forward. When he moves to the side, oh, I did happen to pick a character that's the same. Doesn't matter. Look at the nose. Look at his nose, for instance, right? Forward facing, that's what the nose looks like. When he turns to the side, slightly different sprite. When he turns again, I happen to have used the same sprite again, okay? Reason being, what I've discovered is with 360, with 2D animation, if you turn the character's head like that, right, looks great because I'm doing a relatively fast head turn. So if he's looking over here and he sees something behind him, he turns around like that. You're not even going to see the sprite swapping. If I start to do it really, really slow, you're going to see the sprite swapping of the shape of the face, right? So where he's at here, his cheeks out to the side. When he's looking forward, he's tapered down. As I said, when you do that, you don't even notice it, right? It's only when you move really, really slow. So I designed these characters in a way that they're specifically meant to just that little bit, doesn't have to be crazy fast. It just has to be a little bit sort of faster like that. So the more time you want to put into it, you can get that transition between your sprites to be nice and smooth. But I'll tell you, it's an art form trying to do it. Okay.
Yeah, that's an excellent example that really,
Carry
I
on.
think that explains it very clearly for everyone. Like Gary said, 2D animation, generally the speeds are more dynamic, energetic. Of course, there's certain types of 2D animation, like, you know, the Ghibli studios or something like that, or
Yep,
classic Snow White, where it's very smooth and very traditional. But if you're talking about something like, you know, South Park or Ren and Stimpy or whatnot, you're getting a lot of
exactly.
just
It's
bouncy,
all
kind
about
of
speed.
energetic stuff. So yeah, really good example. Awesome character, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Uh,
But that's my Aussie tradie. He's
I was gonna say he kind of looks like a bogan,
yep,
right?
yep, he is. That's my Aussie tradie.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my, work hard all week and then on Friday afternoon at the pub with the boys. Yep, that's that's exactly what I
Weekend
designed.
warrior.
Right down, yeah, exactly. Right down to the mullet at the back in the 70s stash. Yep.
All
And the surfer sunglasses.
right. David asks, will he be selling the dog in finalized form?
No, I won't. And I gave that
No.
a lot of thought. But the reason that I won't be selling it in final form is because I would have to go back and completely rebuild it as an SVG character because I don't sell characters now unless they're vector and they can take use of the SVG format. And it's just the amount of work that it would take to go back and do the dog, even though a lot of it is drawn, is just too great. So I don't think at this stage I'll be releasing him.
Fair enough. All right. So Pierre says, your answer is very helpful. Thanks for the demo. Thanks,
Thank you.
Pierre,
Yeah.
for being with us. Yeah. Sheila's asking, can you do more parallax tutorials? I think we could
Okay.
probably, yeah.
We could that yeah we could cover that, but I don't think they would actually let me do a tutorial on parallax. Simple reason being, I can explain the whole thing in 10 minutes, but we need to fill it out. So again, Sheila, go to the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook group and ask the question there, and we will help you with it.
Yeah, it should be something that pops up.
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
easy.
yeah. All right. She's clarifying on the earlier question. I think I import the motion graphics video from Envato,
All
and
right.
I want to import the character, make it sync with the motion Okay, so just like videos from Envato, like stock video stuff.
Yeah, you can certainly import videos. There's no problem there. You can import MP4s and stuff like that. You can use them as backgrounds for your characters and stuff. I've done that a lot, and it looks really, really good. Anita Bell has actually produced a whole bunch of fantastic um, animated MP4 backgrounds that are still they're all created in 3D animation and they're animated, but they're just an MP4 that you can put at the back of your animation and then have your characters animated in front of it, and it looks fantastic. So yes, you can do that.
All right, and then David
Oh,
asks,
look at David's question. This
Corel
is the
Draw.
most important question of the webinar.
Yeah,
For me, I can tell you. Will
yeah.
Reillusion be adding CorelDRAW as an export import option soon? Man, David, I got to tell you, it's been on the list for a long time. And truly, I'm still waiting on it. I want it as bad as anybody else because I've been using CorelDRAW since version 1. I would love it, but there's no word of it as yet. I would love to see it.
All right, one from Yui here. Which is better, using the template or the swap technique to create a character?
Well, it's the same thing. Using the templates or swap is the same thing, right? Because you take the template and then you swap the parts. The two different ways that you've got of creating characters, one is to take a character or a template and swap the parts. The other is to take the template completely outside of Cartoon Animator and put it in software like Affinity or CorelDRAW or Photoshop, and then build your character in there with parts and then import it. They're the two different ways. The second way that I explained takes a little bit more practice, a little bit more experience with Cartoon Animator.
All right, great. And then for Sheila, somebody had put a link in the chat here. I just closed it. Mark didn't put a link in the chat to a Parallax Cartoon Animator tutorial, so you can check
Oh,
that
great.
link out that Mark put there. So
Oh, good
thanks for
stuff.
that, Mark. Question from Marcus. Do you know if they're planning to add multiple 360 setups to the same rig so that you can add multiple heads, bodies, or tails in a more
Uh,
360 way?
I don't think they'll ever do that. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. I actually don't have a lot of influence over the tech team, but there's never been any word of that. And you know what? Kai nailed it before. Kai nailed this one. If you want a character that's got 3 tails and 4 heads, make one character and just duplicate that character and make everything else invisible that you don't need, right? So you've got a character, you make his entire body invisible, you've just got the head. So then you've got 3 heads on the one character and you fake it. Just fake it. You can do it.
Yeah, so you have those 3 Spider-Mans like pointing at each other. You know the
Yeah,
meme?
no, you can
Just do
totally
that.
do
Just
that.
make.
Oh, thank you, Donald, for your comment.
All right. That's Donald's comment there. So good job on the smooth
Actually,
head movement.
one thing for Donald. One thing for Donald. There's something coming up later this year. I haven't spoken to Reillusion about it yet, but there's something coming up later this year that I might be able to demo, which really involves showing you how to get the best results out of the head turn that I was showing you there, how to really animate it, not just move the head around, but how to animate it. I've got an idea that I'm going to project, that I'm going to put in front of Reillusion for later this year. That's going to be really, I think people are going to love it. It's going to be really cool.
Right on. We got some more comments from Nehemiah. Gary, you did an amazing job in
Sorry,
caps
sorry,
letters.
I didn't hear that one, Kai. What was that one?
He said, Gary, go get a haircut. I don't know.
I did that yesterday just for today's webinar.
That's the comment I deleted. Okay, another question from Lauren. We're almost at the end here, so we'll do a couple more questions and we'll end off the webinar
Yep.
here, guys. So Lauren asks, if you use an animation pack animation, but you need to tweak the movement of a limb mid-animation, can you do it? You absolutely can.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. The answer to that is a quick yes.
Yeah, lots of tutorials, Lauren, on motion editing in the Learning Center. I'm going to throw a quick link to the Learning Center. Seems like a lot of
Yep.
people have trouble or they just don't know where it is. So if you go to the Reillusion site at the top, you can just choose Cartoon Animator here. I'll just throw this link in the chat for you guys so you have it. I'm not sharing my screen here, but whoops, where's my chat?
I'm going to open the chat as well because when I'm finished, I'm going to go back and have a read of it.
All right, so that's the courses.reillusion.com is where all the tutorials are basically categorized into different topics. And I just put the Cartoon Animator one, and there
Yep.
are topics for animation editing. So, yeah. Anonymous attendee asks, is iClone 9 around the corner? I was about to buy iClone 8.
This is not an iClone tutorial.
Yeah, so iClone 9 is not around the corner right now.
No.
Cartoon Character Creator 5 is. So yeah, we're not going to talk too much about that, but it's already in pre-sale. So feel free to check out all the deals we have on that.
And by the way, I saw the trailer for Character Creator 5 yesterday. I saw when the trailer dropped. Oh my God, how realistic are these characters now? They're
Yeah, they're
just
amazing. Yeah.
it's insane. It's like the fact that they in the demo that they did the close up of the girl with the dark skin and they just did a close up so that all you can see is her mouth, her eyes, and her nose. That they were brave enough to put her that close to the screen to demo it. To me, that's incredible. Yeah, that was so incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks,
definitely. Which is pretty exceptional.
yeah.
Okay, Nehemiah, your comment here about MP4 file users, I would
No, you
probably,
just drag and drop.
yeah, just drag and drop the files into the project,
Yeah.
into your
Okay,
viewport.
if you've got an MP4 file, you just drag and drop it directly into stage mode. If you get an error message that says that you don't have the correct codecs loaded, then go to the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page and we'll hook you up with the correct codecs. Sometimes you need to do that. I did that like 10 years ago when I first started. I needed the correct codecs. I think it was actually Kai that got them for me. And you install that, and then everything, you just drag and drop your MP4s in. You'll never have a problem. I've never had an issue again. And thank you, Anita, for dropping the feedback tracker.
Yep. So I need to put a link for the feedback tracker. I guess people can't really see that, but
Yep.
yeah, it's there in the chat.
I love how excited Esther is with the questions.
All right, we'll do one more from Esther.
One more from Esther. She can finish it up. And
How would you
she's
mask
gonna
an
like it.
item not just for the face, but for another specific part of the face so it would work just like the eye white and the iris?
I don't use
Mask.
masking. I've never used masking. I know there's remember I said that this is a great way to wrap up, right? At the start of the webinar, one of the things I said was I've been using this software for 10 years and I still don't know everything, right? One of the things I still don't know, I don't know about masking. I've never used it. I have never found a single instance in everything I've ever made where I needed to mask something. Not once. Not once have I ever used it. So I'm sorry, Esther, I can't answer that one. But again, Cartoon Animator Users Facebook page, get yourself over there, come and say hello, join the page. It's an awesome bunch of people.
Yeah, I think the masking one's a bit tricky. The eyes are in the template are made for masking. I'm just trying
Mhm.
to rack my brain if there's a possible way, but again, I
And if
can't think of
Realusion's
anything that comes
listening,
up.
if the Realusion tech guys are listening, here's my, if I'm in the Q&A section, here's my question. Why do we have to leave Cartoon Animator to do the irises? We should be able to do that right here in Cartoon Animator. I would like to see an update where I can do that in here. If we did that, I could have easily have kept my dog Vector and finished him off. But because I had to take him out to Photoshop, I lose the vectoring. So and I've been pushing for that for a long time. I want that one. That's all I want.
All
And that and Anita's hippopotamuses thing. I'd like the extra bone in the neck and that. That would be nice.
right. Okay, good. I think
Thank you,
we're
sir.
done with all the question Q&A now. I had
Thanks,
told her I had
everybody.
one more where there'll be a replay sent out. Yes, we are going to send you guys a video after this via email, so make sure you check your emails, fill out that survey, and get your chance to win Cartoon Animator or the webcam facial profile. Once again, thank you to our friend from down under, the amazing Garry Pye, for
Thank you, sir. I had
showing
the
us
time
the
of my
behind
life.
the scenes of creating quadrupeds,
I
creating
absolutely love
quadrupeds.
doing these. Guys, make sure you fill out the questionnaire that comes truly. Please fill out the questionnaire because I'm telling you, Realusion does read them. I know for a fact that they read them. And if you fill out the questionnaire and you tell them what they want, there's more chance that I'll get to do more of these. And if I get to do more of these, you get to learn more. So thank you for joining us.
And make sure you comment on Gary's hairstyle if you think he should change it or keep
Yes,
it as is.
yes.
That's very important
Make all your
feedback that
feedback
we
questions about my hairstyle.
it's very important feedback we require at
Love it.
Reillusion here.
I love it.
We
Thank you, my
control his
friend.
hairstyle. All right, thanks guys. Thanks Gary. I'll see
Fabulous.
you guys all later. Take care everyone. See you next time.
Bye, guys.